Nobody sings anymore. The boy's handwriting was shaky across the journal page, like his fingers could barely hold the pen. Room 847 at Mercy General had seen 63 patients in the past. 4 years, but none of them had left words quite like these. His mother found the notebook tucked between his pillow and the bedrail, one sentence repeated across 12 pages. Each time the letters growing smaller, weaker. I wish someone would teach me to sing before I die. She never showed it to the doctors. What could they do? Stage 4 neuroblastoma doesn't care about wishes. It just takes and takes until there's nothing left. But someone else saw that notebook. Someone the hospital forgot existed. The night janitor who mopped floors while families slept. The invisible man who'd spent 40 years erasing himself. Marcus Williams never spoke unless spoken to. He moved like a shadow through those sterile hallways, pushing his cart past rooms where machines beeped their mechanical lullabies, past families holding vigils in uncomfortable chairs, past nurses too exhausted to remember his name. At 67 years old, Marcus had perfected the art of disappearing. But what they didn't know was that before he became invisible, before he traded spotlights for mop water, Marcus Williams had been someone else entirely, and the boy in room 847, 11-year-old Caleb Morrison, was about to discover that sometimes the people you overlook are exactly the ones who can save you. Before we go further, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Mwashu. These stories travel the world, and we love knowing you're part of this family. The fluorescent lights in the East Wing always flickered at 2:47 a.m. Marcus had timed it for 3 years straight, like clockwork. That section of hallway would pulse with dying electricity, casting shadows that danced against walls covered in. Cheerful murals, cartoon animals that felt obscene next to all this suffering. He pushed his cart slowly. The wheel with the broken bearings squeaked every third. Rotation, a rhythm he'd stopped hearing years ago. His navy blue uniform hung loose on his frame. He'd lost weight since Martha died. 18 months, and he still forgot to eat most days. Room 847's door was cracked open. Most families kept them shut, sealing in their private grief. But Caleb's mother, Sarah Morrison, kept it open, said she couldn't stand feeling trapped, that the walls closed in when the door was shut. Marcus could see her through the gap, slumped in the visitor's chair that converted into the world's most uncomfortable bed, her blonde hair falling across her face, still wearing the same University of Michigan sweatshirt she'd had on yesterday. And the day before that, the boy was awake. Marcus noticed immediately. Caleb's eyes were open, staring at the ceiling tiles. The kind of staring that meant he was counting them again. Anything to make time move differently. Marcus hesitated. Protocol said don't disturb patients. Stay invisible, finish your shift, collect your check. He'd followed that rule for 40 years without breaking it. Once. But something about the way that kid stared at nothing, like he was already practicing being gone. Marcus knocked softly on the doorframe. 2 gentle taps that barely made sound. Sarah jerked awake, her hand flying to her chest. "No, ma'am." "I'm sorry," Marcus said quietly, his voice rough from disuse. He cleared his throat. "Just wanted to check if your trash needed emptying." She glanced at the small bin by the door. It was overflowing with crumpled tissues and empty coffee. "Cups, yes, thank you." "That would be, thank you." Marcus moved into the room carefully, like he was entering sacred ground. He could feel Caleb watching him now. The boy had turned his head slightly, those gray eyes following Marcus's movements with clinical interest. The room smelled like antiseptic and something sweet. Someone had brought vanilla candles, even though they weren't supposed to burn them. The wax sat melted and cold on the windowsill. Marcus replaced the trash bag slowly, taking more time than necessary. He noticed the notebook on the bedside table, spiral-bound. The cover decorated with stars that Caleb had drawn himself. Some of them colored in, most of them not, like he'd run out of energy halfway through. "You like to write?" Marcus asked before he could stop himself. Caleb blinked, surprised that anyone was talking to him. Most adults spoke around him now. Not to him, sometimes. "When I can hold the pen." His voice was thin, paper thin, the kind of voice that belonged to someone much older. Or someone running out of time? What do you write about? Caleb looked at his mother. She was awake but pretending not to listen, giving him space to answer. Stuff I wish I could do. The words landed heavy in that small room. Marcus felt them in his chest. He knew what it meant to live inside wishes that would never come true. That's good, Marcus said, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. Writing them down makes them real, even if just on paper. Caleb's expression shifted. Something like hope flickered behind the exhaustion. You really think so? I know so. Sarah was fully awake now, watching this exchange with red-rimmed eyes, probably wondering why her son was talking more to the janitor than he'd talked to anyone in days. Marcus finished with the trash. He should leave, get back to his cart, finish the East Wing, move to the ICU. But his feet wouldn't move. I'll see you tomorrow night, he said instead. Not a question, a promise. Caleb nodded once, and for the first time in Marcus's 40-year career as a janitor, someone looked disappointed to see him go. Dr. Elaine Chen stood at the nurse's station reviewing Caleb. Morrison's latest scans, each image worse than the last. The tumor had spread to his spine now, wrapping around vertebrae like invasive vines. She was 41 years old and had been an oncologist for 15 years. She'd seen hundreds of terminal cases, had learned to compartmentalize grief into a box she only opened at home, late at night. With a glass of wine she never finished. But this kid was different, maybe because he reminded her of someone. Her younger brother, Danny, who died at 12, different cancer. Same hopeless eyes. How long? Sarah Morrison had asked that morning, her voice steady because she'd asked the question so many times it had lost its weight. Elaine had looked at the scans, at the numbers, at the clinical reality. Weeks, maybe a month if we're lucky. Lucky, what a terrible word to use. Now it was 3 a.m. and Elaine was still here. She lived 10 minutes away but hadn't been home in 2 days. There was always another chart to review, another treatment plan to revise, another family to prepare for the worst. She rubbed her eyes beneath her wire-rimmed glasses. Her dark hair was pulled back in a bun that had come loose. Hours ago, her white coat had a coffee stain on the left pocket. She'd stopped caring about appearances around the same time. She'd stopped sleeping. Dr. Chen. Elaine looked up. Marcus Williams stood a respectful distance away, his hands folded over the handle of his mop, waiting for permission to speak. Yes? The boy in 847, Caleb? Marcus paused, choosing his words carefully. Is he accepting visitors? Besides family? Elaine frowned. Why? And I just thought maybe he could use some company. Someone to talk to. He has nurses. And his mother never leaves. I meant someone who isn't trying to fix him. The words cut through Elaine's exhaustion like a blade. She stared at this janitor, really seeing him for the first time. He had kind eyes, the kind that had seen suffering and learned gentleness from. You want to visit him, she said slowly. A patient, if it's allowed. I wouldn't want to. It's not protocol. Elaine's voice was automatic, clinical. Then she thought about Caleb's latest blood work, about the way he'd stopped asking when he could go home, about the journal his mother had mentioned, filled with impossible wishes. But I won't stop you, she said finally. Just don't interfere with his care. Marcus nodded once. Thank you, doctor. He started to turn away, then stopped. For what it's worth, you look like you could use some sleep. Elaine let out a bitter laugh. Sleep is for people who don't have patients dying? With respect, Mom, everyone dies eventually. The question is whether you'll be alive when your time comes, he said it gently, without judgment. Then he pushed his cart down the hallway, leaving Elaine standing alone, holding a scan of a tumor that looked like a constellation, wondering when she'd stopped being a person and started being just a doctor. Night 3. Marcus knocked on room 847 at 2:55 a.m. Sarah was asleep in the chair again. Caleb was awake, headphones on, staring at his phone screen. But he wasn't scrolling, just holding it, like the weight of it was the only thing anchoring him to Earth. He pulled the headphones off when he saw Marcus. You came back. Said I would. People say a lot of things here. Marcus heard the edge in that statement. The resignation of a kid who'd been promised miracles that never materialized. He set his mop aside and sat down on the edge of the visitor's couch. His knees popped audibly. "What were you listening to?" Caleb glanced at his phone. "Nothing good, just trying to find something that makes sense." "Music?" "Yeah," Caleb's voice dropped. "I used to want to learn how to sing, but my dad said it was stupid. Said I should focus on getting better instead." Marcus felt anger flash through him, quick and hot. What kind of father tells a dying kid his dreams are stupid? "Or your dad around much?" "He visits on Tuesdays for an hour. Then he goes back to work." Caleb said it matter-of-factly, like he'd already accepted that he wasn't worth more than scheduled visits. That must be hard. "It's fine." Caleb picked at the IV tape on his hand. "He's important, has meetings and stuff." Marcus recognized that tone. The voice of a child convincing themselves they don't matter. "You know what I think?" Marcus said carefully. "I think the most important meeting a man can have is with the person who needs him most." Caleb looked up. His grey eyes were glossy with tears he wouldn't let fall. "Do you have kids?" "No, but I had a wife who taught me what showing up means." "Had?" She died a year and a half ago. Heart attack in the grocery store." Just collapsed between the cereal and the bread aisle. Marcus hadn't talked about Martha in months, but something about this kid made the words come easier. "I'm sorry," Caleb whispered. "Me too." Every single day, they sat in silence for a moment. The machines beeped their rhythm. Sarah shifted in her sleep but didn't wake. "You said you wanted to learn to sing," Marcus said finally. Caleb nodded. "What stopped you?" "Before you got sick, nobody ever taught me, and I was too scared to try on my own. Thought I'd sound stupid, that people would laugh." Marcus stood up slowly, his back protesting the movement. He walked to the window and looked out at the parking lot. Empty except for a few cars belonging to night shift workers. "I used to sing," he said quietly. "Long time ago. Different life." Caleb sat up straighter. The movement clearly hurt, but he ignored it. "Really?" "Really. I was even pretty good at it. For a while." "What happened?" Marcus turned back to face him. "I got scared too. Scared of being seen, of failing. So I stopped trying and started hiding instead. Do you regret it?" The question hit Marcus in the solar plexus. Did he regret it? 40 years of pushing a mop instead of pushing boundaries? 40 years of silence instead of song? "Every single day," he admitted. Caleb pulled his blanket tighter around his shoulders. "Will you teach me?" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Marcus felt his heart hammer against his ribs. Teaching meant remembering. Remembering meant feeling. Feeling meant grief that he'd buried under routine and exhaustion. But this kid, this brave, broken kid was asking for the one thing Marcus had left to give. "Yeah," Marcus heard himself say. "Yeah, I'll teach you." Caleb smiled, really smiled. The kind of smile that made the machines and the medical equipment and the death sentence fade into background noise. "Tomorrow night?" Caleb asked hopefully. "Tomorrow night," Marcus confirmed. "But you have to promise me something." "What?" "You're going to try, really try, even when it's hard, even when you think you sound terrible, because the only way to find your voice is to use it." Caleb nodded solemnly, like Marcus had just given him a sacred mission. "I promise." Marcus picked up his mop. "Get some sleep, kid. You're gonna need your energy." As he left the room, he heard Caleb whisper something to himself. Too quiet for Marcus to make out the words, but the tone was clear. "Hope, doctor." Elaine Chen was in the break room when Marcus walked past. She'd watched him leave Caleb's room, and curiosity had gotten the better of her. She followed him, maintaining what she thought was a discreet distance. Marcus stopped at his supply closet, a narrow room filled with cleaning products and equipment. He disappeared inside. Elaine waited. 3 minutes passed. Then she heard it, singing, quiet at first, then building, a voice rich and warm like aged whiskey, smooth but with texture, years of living worn into every note. She moved closer to the door, which he'd left cracked open, peered inside. Marcus stood with his eyes closed, one hand pressed against the metal shelf, the other hanging loose at his side. He was singing an old gospel song, something Elaine vaguely recognized from her childhood. Before her parents stopped going to church, before everything became about achievement and success. His voice cracked on the high notes, but instead of stopping, he leaned into it. made the imperfection part of the beauty. Elaine felt tears burn behind her eyes. When was the last time she'd heard something this raw, this human? The song ended. Marcus opened his eyes and saw her standing there. He didn't look embarrassed. "Just tired. You were listening," he said. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have." "It's all right." He grabbed a bottle of floor cleaner. "Nothing secret about it. You're really good," Elaine said. "Like professionally good." Marcus let out a dry laugh. "Was past tense. Long time ago. What happened?" He looked at her for a long moment, deciding whether she was really asking or just being polite. "I had a record deal in 1985. Gospel and soul music, 3 albums that did pretty well. Tours, radio play, the whole thing. Then my wife got pregnant. We lost the baby at 6 months. Daughter. She would have been named Grace." He said it clinically, like he'd rehearsed the words until they lost their power. But Elaine heard the lie in his voice, the wound that had never closed. "Martha fell into depression. Bad depression. I couldn't tour anymore. Couldn't focus on music when she needed me home. So I walked away from it all. Got a job with steady hours and health insurance. Took care of her the way I should have all along. That's not walking away," Elaine said softly. "That's love. Maybe, but I lost myself in the process. Stopped singing entirely. Every note reminded me of what we'd lost. And then Martha died, and I realized I'd spent 40 years running from grief instead of living despite it." Elaine understood that. More than he knew. "Why did you offer to teach Caleb?" Marcus set down the cleaning bottle. "Because that kid is dying and he knows it. And the one thing he wants before he goes is to find his voice. Not to be cured or saved or fixed, just to sing. And I can give him that. It's the only valuable thing I have left." "You're giving him more than that," Elaine said. "You're giving him someone who sees him, who doesn't look at him and see a tumor or a tragedy. Just a kid who wants to learn something." Marcus nodded slowly. "You spend a lot of time in this hospital, Doctor." "It's my job." "No, your job is to treat patients, but you live here. When's the last time you went home?" Elaine opened her mouth to respond with something defensive, but the truth stuck in her throat. "I don't remember." As she admitted, "There's more than one way to die," Marcus said gently. "Some of us just do it slower than others." He picked up his mop and walked past her, leaving Elaine standing alone in the fluorescent-lit hallway, wondering when she'd stopped being doctor. Chen, who loved medicine and became doctor. Chen, who hid inside it. Night 4. Marcus arrived at 2:50 a.m. with something tucked under his arm, a guitar case, old and battered, covered in stickers from cities he'd visited 40 years ago. Caleb's eyes went huge when he saw it. "Is that belonged to my wife? She played better than I sang. Thought maybe you'd want to learn something real. Not just singing, the whole package." Sarah was awake this time. She'd been watching the door, waiting. "Mr. No thanks necessary, ma'am. Just spending time with a good kid." Marcus pulled up a chair. The guitar case clicked open with a sound that echoed through the room. Inside was a honey-colored acoustic guitar, worn smooth from years of playing. Martha's initials carved into the back. M.L.W. He lifted it carefully, like he was handling something sacred. "First rule of singing," Marcus said to Caleb. "You gotta understand rhythm. And the best way to learn rhythm is to feel it in your hands before you feel it in your voice." He positioned the guitar across his lap. His fingers found the strings automatically, muscle memory taking over. He played a simple chord progression, nothing fancy. "Just 4 chords repeating. Feel that?" Marcus asked. "How it comes back to the beginning. That's a song. It goes somewhere and then comes home. That's all music is, leaving and returning." Caleb watched his fingers with intense focus. "Can you teach me that?" "Eventually. But tonight we start with your voice. Because that's what you wanted to learn. And that's what we're gonna do." Marcus set the guitar aside and stood up. "Stand up if you can. If not, sitting works too." Caleb struggled out of bed, his legs shaky, the IV pole following him like a mechanical shadow. Sarah moved to help, but Marcus shook his head gently. "Let him do it himself." Caleb stood, swaying slightly but upright. "Good. Now put your hand here." Marcus placed Caleb's palm on his own chest. "Feel how I breathe, deep down in my belly, not up here in my shoulders." That's where the power comes from. The foundation he demonstrated, slow, deep breaths that made his entire torso expand. Caleb tried to mimic it. His breath came shallow and quick. I can't. Yes, you can. Just takes practice. Try again. 5 attempts, 10. On the 15th try, Caleb managed a breath that came from deeper. His face lit up with accomplishment. There you go. Now we're going to make sound. Just one note. Pick any note. Don't think about it being pretty. Just let it out. Caleb hesitated. Then he opened his mouth. A thin, wavering note emerged. Off-key and uncertain. He stopped immediately. That was terrible. That was brave, Marcus corrected. Again. They practiced for 30 minutes, just finding notes, letting sound exist without judgment. Sarah watched from the chair, tears streaming silently down her face. By 3:45 a.m., Caleb was exhausted, but he was smiling. I did it, he whispered. I actually did it. You sure did, and tomorrow night we'll do it again. And the night after that, until it feels natural. Marcus packed up the guitar. Get some rest now. But before he could leave, Caleb said something that stopped him cold. My dad's coming tomorrow. Tuesday, he usually stays an hour. The implication was clear. Don't be here when he arrives. I'll come earlier then, Marcus said. 2:30. We'll work before he gets here. Caleb nodded gratefully. After Marcus left, Sarah approached him in the hallway. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why are you doing this? You don't know us. You don't owe Caleb anything. Marcus thought about it. Because 40 years ago, someone asked me what I was running from, and I didn't have an answer. Just kept running. I don't want your son to run from anything. I want him to run towards something, even if the time he has left is short. Sarah's voice broke. The doctors say weeks. Then we make them count. Tuesday afternoon. Marcus wasn't scheduled to work until 10 p.m., but he arrived at the hospital at 2:00, changed into his uniform early, grabbed the guitar. He reached room 847 at 2:30 exactly. Caleb was alone, looking at the clock, counting down minutes until his father arrived. Ready? Marcus asked. Yeah. They didn't waste time. Marcus taught him breathing exercises, showed him how to place sound forward in his mouth, how to shape vowels so they carried. Caleb struggled. His body was weak, but his determination was fierce. By 3:30, he could hold a note for 5 seconds. By 3:45, he could match pitch when Marcus played a chord. You're a natural, Marcus said honestly, or you're a really good teacher. Maybe both. At 3:52, voices approached from the hallway. Caleb's entire posture changed. His shoulders hunched. His face closed off. A man entered. Tall, mid-40s, expensive suit, phone pressed to his ear. Tell them I'll call back. I'm at the hospital. He said hospital, like it was an inconvenience. Behind him came a nurse Marcus didn't recognize, probably from the day shift. The man, David Morrison, ended his call, noticed Marcus standing there with a guitar. Who are you? Marcus Williams. I work here, and you're in my son's room because... I asked him to be here, Caleb said quietly. David frowned. Caleb, we talked about this. You need to rest, not entertain random staff members. He's teaching me to sing. The words came out defensive, protective. David's expression hardened. Teaching you what? I thought we agreed you'd focus on treatment, on getting better. I'm not getting better. Dad, silence, sharp and painful. David's jaw clenched. Don't talk like that. It's true, doctor. Chen said weeks, maybe a month. You were there, you heard her. Doctors have been wrong before. But his voice lacked conviction. Marcus started to pack up the guitar. I'll give you folks some privacy. No, Caleb said firmly. Stay. David turned to his son. You drive an hour to be here for 60 minutes. Then you leave. Marcus comes every single night. For hours. He actually wants to be here. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. David's face flushed red. I have a job. Responsibilities. I'm doing the best I can. Your best isn't enough. The words came out small, but they landed like grenades. David looked at Marcus. I think you should go. Marcus met his eyes. I think that's up to Caleb. I'm his father, and I'm telling you to leave. Dad, stop. Caleb, enough. The boy's face crumpled. All the progress they'd made, the confidence Marcus had helped him build, shattered in seconds. Marcus set the guitar down carefully. "I'll be back tonight," he said to Caleb. "We'll keep working." He walked past David, paused at the doorway. "With respect, sir, being a father isn't about showing up on a schedule. It's about showing up when it matters. And right now, your son matters more than whatever's waiting in your inbox." He left before David could respond. In the hallway, Marcus's hands were shaking, not from anger, from recognition. He'd been that father once, not literally. But when Martha was drowning in grief after they lost Grace, he disappeared into work, into touring, into anything that let him avoid the pain. He'd failed her. And watching David fail, Caleb felt like staring into a mirror 40 years old. That night, Marcus returned at 11 p.m. Caleb was awake, staring at the ceiling. Zara sat beside him, holding his hand. "He didn't come back," Caleb said when he saw Marcus. "He left 10 minutes after you did. Said he had a conference call. I'm sorry, kid. It's fine. I'm used to it. But it wasn't fine." Marcus could see it in the way Caleb's shoulders sagged, in the way he'd given up on sitting upright. Sarah excused herself. "I'm going to get coffee." "You two work." After she left, Marcus sat down. "You want to talk about it?" "What's there to talk about?" "My dad doesn't care." "I think he cares. I think he's terrified. And sometimes when people are scared, they run, like you did." Marcus flinched. "Yeah, like I did?" Caleb turned to look at him. "But you came back." "I did. Took 40 years, but I did." "That's too long," Caleb said simply. "I don't have 40 years. The truth of it sat between them, heavy and undeniable." Marcus picked up the guitar. "Then we make the time you have count. Want to keep learning?" Caleb nodded. They worked until 2 a.m. Marcus taught him a simple melody, just 5 notes repeating. Caleb's voice was weak but determined. "Why do you think music matters so much?" Caleb asked during a break. Marcus thought carefully. "Because it's proof you existed. Long after you're gone, a song can still echo, can still touch people, can still remind the world that you were here and you mattered." Caleb was quiet for a long moment. "Will people remember me?" "They will if we do this right." "Do what right?" Marcus hadn't planned to say it. The idea had been forming in his mind for days. But now, looking at this dying kid who just wanted to be heard, it crystallized into certainty. "We're going to record a song, you and me. Write something that's yours. Perform it, preserve it, so that no matter what happens, your voice lives on." Caleb's eyes filled with tears. "You really think I can do that?" "I know you can. Question is, do you?" Caleb wiped his eyes. "I want to try. Then we start tomorrow. And we don't stop until you've got something worth leaving behind." Dr. Elaine Chen was reviewing labs at 3 a.m. when she heard music. Faint but unmistakable. Coming from the East Wing, she followed the sound, found herself outside room 847. Inside, Marcus sat with the guitar across his lap. Caleb lay in bed, propped up on pillows. They were singing together. A simple song about sunshine and morning. Caleb's voice was thin and off-key, but he was smiling wider than Elaine had ever seen. She watched for several minutes, then continued down the hallway, but something had shifted in her chest. A feeling she'd forgotten existed, not hope exactly, more like possibility. The next morning she made a call to her younger sister, Rebecca, who she hadn't spoken to in 3 months. "Hey," Elaine said when Rebecca answered, "I know it's early, but I wanted to tell you something. I miss you. And I'm sorry for always being too busy. Can we have lunch this week?" Rebecca's voice cracked. "I thought you forgot I existed." "No, I just forgot I did. Week 2. Caleb's voice was getting stronger. Not physically, his body was failing faster now, but his confidence bloomed like something wild and untamed. They'd been working on an original song, something Caleb had started writing in his journal months ago before he knew what the ending would be. "When the lights go dim and the music fades, will anybody remember the songs I made? When the curtain falls and the stage goes dark, will anybody remember I left my mark?" Marcus had helped him refine it, add melody, structure, but the soul of it belonged entirely to Caleb. They practiced every night from 11 p.m. until 3 a.m. When Caleb's energy flagged, they'd rest. Marcus would tell stories about his touring days, about Martha and the way she'd throw her head back when she laughed, about the daughter they'd lost and how Grace's absence had shaped everything. Do you think they're together? Caleb asked one night. Grace and your wife. Marcus set down the guitar. I think if there's anything after this, anything at all, they found each other. And they're probably causing trouble together. Caleb smiled. I bet Grace would like my song. I know she would. But privately, Marcus was worried. Caleb's breathing had gotten more labored. His skin had taken on a grayish pallor. The machines around his bed beeped more frequently now, urgent warnings that time was accelerating. Dr. Chen confirmed it on Tuesday morning. Days, she told Sarah. Maybe a week if we're very lucky. Sarah had nodded. She'd already known. A mother always knows. That night, Marcus arrived to find chaos, alarms screaming, nurses rushing into room 847, Dr. Chen barking orders. Caleb had crashed. Seizure followed by respiratory distress. Marcus stood frozen in the hallway, guitar case heavy in his hand. Watching through the window as they worked, 30 minutes felt like 30 hours. Finally, the alarms quieted. The nurses filed out. Dr. Chen stayed behind, adjusting IV medications. Marcus caught her at the door. Is he stable for now? Elaine's face was drawn, but it's accelerating. The tumor's pressing on his brainstem. We're managing symptoms, but there's no stopping this anymore. How long?
3 days.
Maybe 4. Marcus felt the floor tilt beneath him. We're not finished. The song, we haven't recorded it yet, Marcus. Elaine's voice was gentle. I don't think he has the strength. He has to. It's the only thing he wants. The only thing that matters to him. Elaine looked at this 67-year-old janitor who'd somehow become more important to her dying patient than anyone else. If you're going to do this, it needs to be soon. Tomorrow night at the latest. After that, she didn't finish. Marcus nodded. Tomorrow night, he went into the room. Caleb was awake but groggy, oxygen mask covering his face. Sarah sat beside him, clutching his hand like a lifeline. Hey, kid, Marcus said softly. Caleb's eyes focused on him. He lifted one hand weakly, pointed at the guitar. Marcus understood. Yeah, we're going to finish it. Tomorrow night, you and me. But you have to rest tonight. Save your strength, Caleb nodded. His eyes drifted closed. Sarah followed Marcus into the hallway. He's dying. Her voice was flat. He's really dying. No, I thought maybe. If he had something to fight for, something to look forward to, you gave him that. This song, this whole experience, it's more than most people get in an entire lifetime. It's not enough, Sarah whispered. It's never going to be enough. Marcus didn't have an answer for that. Because she was right. Wednesday, 6 p.m. Marcus wasn't scheduled to work, but he came anyway. With equipment he'd borrowed from a friend who ran a small recording studio, nothing fancy. A portable interface. One decent microphone, his laptop. He set up in room 847 while Caleb slept. Sarah watched him work. You really think he can do this? I think he'll die trying. And that's what matters, Doctor. Chen appeared in the doorway. She'd heard about the plan through the nurses' station. Gossip. You need anything? Medical support. Keep him comfortable. Keep him awake if you can. That's all I'm asking. Elaine nodded. I'll be close. By 8 p.m., the room was transformed. Makeshift recording studio in a hospital. Wires taped down so nobody would trip. The microphone positioned beside Caleb's bed. Marcus had printed out the lyrics in large font, taped them to the wall where Caleb could see them. At 8:30, Caleb woke up. He saw the setup and his face lit up with understanding. Tonight? He asked through the oxygen mask. Tonight, Sarah helped him sit up. The movement clearly caused pain, but Caleb bit it back. We'll do this in pieces, Marcus explained. One line at a time if we have to. I'll play the guitar. You sing when you can. We'll edit it together later. Make it perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect, Caleb said. It just has to be real. Then real is what we'll give them. Marcus picked up the guitar, found the opening chord. You ready? Caleb pulled off his oxygen mask. Sarah started to protest, but Marcus shook his head. Let him do this. The boy took the deepest breath his damaged lungs could. Manage, and he sang. When the lights go dim and the music fades, will anybody remember the songs I made? His voice cracked thin and wavering. but filled with more heart than Marcus had heard in 40 years of music. They recorded the first verse 3 times. Caleb's breathing grew more labored with each take. "That's enough," Sarah said. "Caleb, you need to rest." "No," the word came out fierce. "We keep going. Kid, your mom's right. We can finish this tomorrow. There might not be a tomorrow." Caleb's grey eyes locked on Marcus. "You know that." "I know that. We finish it tonight." Marcus looked at Sarah. She was crying, but she nodded. They kept recording. The second verse took 7 takes. Caleb kept stopping to catch his breath, to cough, to fight back tears of frustration. But he didn't quit. By the chorus, nurses had gathered in the hallway. Dr. Chen stood among them, all of them listening to this dying boy pour every ounce of strength he had left into 4 minutes of music. "I was here. I was real. I had dreams. I could feel. And if nothing else remains when I'm gone, let them know I sang my song." On the final note, Caleb's voice gave out completely. He collapsed back against the pillows, gasping. Marcus immediately replaced the oxygen mask. "You did it. Kid, you did it." But Caleb shook his head, pointed at the bridge section they hadn't recorded yet. "Caleb, no," Sarah pleaded. "You've done enough." He pulled the mask off. "The bridge is the most important part, where everything comes together. We can't leave it unfinished." His determination was absolute. Dr. Chen stepped into the room. "If you're going to do this, I'm giving him something to help, just enough to manage the pain and open his airways. But after this, we're done. His body can't take more." She administered the medication, waited 5 minutes. Caleb's breathing eased slightly. Color returned to his cheeks in a fleeting, borrowed way. "Now," he said, "before it wears off." Marcus positioned the microphone. "This is it, everything you've got. Every bit of heart. Pour it into these next lines, and we'll have something that lives forever." Caleb closed his eyes, found some reserve of strength that shouldn't have existed, and he sang the bridge. "Fear tried to silence me. Pain tried to steal my voice. But I'm still breathing, still believing, and this moment is my choice. So hear me now, hear me clear. I was here. I was here." The note he held on "here" was impossible. 5 full seconds of pure, unwavering sound, then it was over. Caleb opened his eyes, looked at Marcus. "Did we get it?" Marcus was crying. He didn't try to hide it. "Yeah, kid. We got it." Caleb smiled. Then his eyes rolled back. The machines erupted in alarms. Dr. Chen and 2 nurses worked for 20 minutes. Marcus stood outside with the guitar. Sarah stood beside him, both of them silent. When Elaine emerged, her face said everything. "He's stable, but barely. That took everything he had left." "How long?" Sarah asked. "Hours, maybe until morning." Sarah made a sound like something breaking. Marcus caught her as her knees gave out. "I need to call his father," she said. "David needs to be here." She pulled out her phone with shaking hands. The call went to voicemail. She tried again, voicemail, 3rd attempt. Finally, David answered. "Sarah, I'm in a meeting. Can this wait?" "No, it can't wait. Your son is dying. He has hours left. And if you have any humanity at all, you will get in your car right now and drive here, because if you don't, you'll have to live with that forever." She hung up. Marcus had never heard her speak that way. All the politeness and accommodation burned away, leaving only truth. David Morrison arrived at 11:47 p.m. He looked disheveled, tie loosened, eyes red. He'd been drinking. Sarah met him in the hallway. "He's sleeping. Don't wake him. I'm his father. I have a right. You have a responsibility, which you've ignored for months." But Marcus, the janitor, he showed up every single night. He taught our son to sing, to believe in something, to matter. "Where were you?" David had no answer. He went into the room, stood at the foot of Caleb's bed, looking at his son like he was seeing him for the first time. Marcus was packing up the recording equipment. David noticed him. "You're the one who's been spending time with Caleb." "Yes, sir. Why?" Marcus straightened. "Because he asked, and because nobody else was." David flinched. "I work 60-hour weeks trying to keep us afloat. Your son doesn't need money. He needs you. And you've given him everything except the one thing that matters. You don't know anything about being a father." "You're right. I don't, but I know about being absent." I know about running from pain until you've run so far you can't find your way back. And I know what it costs. David's face crumpled. I don't know how to do this. How to watch him die. Nobody does. But you show up anyway. You hold his hand. You tell him you love him. You be present for the end because you weren't present. Enough for the middle. David sank into a chair. I'm too late. Maybe, but you're here now. That's something. Caleb woke up at 3:15 a.m. His father was sitting beside the bed, still in his work clothes, still smelling like whiskey, but present. Dad. Hey, buddy. David's voice cracked. I'm here. You came. I'm sorry I didn't come sooner. I'm sorry for so many things. Caleb was quiet for a moment. Did Marcus finish the song? He's working on it now, in the break room. Said he'd have it ready by morning. Good. Caleb's breath was shallow. That's good. Caleb, I need to tell you something. I need you to know that I love you, that I'm proud of you, that you're the best thing I ever did in this life, and I wasted so much time being scared instead of being your father. Tears ran down Caleb's face. I know you were scared. Dad, I'm scared too. David took his son's hand. I'm here now. For however long you need me, I'm not going anywhere. Promise. I promise. They sat in silence, just holding hands, father and son, finally meeting each other in the space between what was and what would never be. Sarah watched from the doorway, her heart breaking and healing simultaneously. At 4:30 a.m. Marcus returned. He had a disc in his hand, the song mixed and mastered as best he could manage with borrowed equipment. You want to hear it? He asked Caleb. The boy nodded weakly. Marcus set up small speakers. The room filled with music. Caleb's voice, thin but determined, telling his story. Marcus's guitar providing the foundation. When it ended, everyone was crying. Even David. It's perfect, Caleb whispered. You made it perfect. No, kid. You made it perfect. I just helped it get heard. Caleb looked at his parents, then at Marcus. Thank you for teaching me to sing, for showing me my voice mattered. It always mattered, Marcus said. From the very first note. Caleb Morrison died at 6:47 a.m. on Thursday morning. The sunrise painted his room in shades of gold and amber. His mother held one hand, his father held the other. Marcus stood at the window, guitar across his back, watching the world wake up while this boy went to sleep. When the machines flatlined, nobody rushed. They all knew this was coming. Dr. Chen came in to officially call it. Time of death, 6:47 a.m. But Marcus would always remember it differently. As the moment Caleb's voice became eternal, the memorial service was held the following Tuesday. At Caleb's request, it wasn't in a funeral home. It was in the hospital's meditation garden, a small space with benches and flowering trees, where families came to process grief in sunlight instead of fluorescent cold. 200 people attended. Friends from school who barely knew him, nurses who'd cared for him, doctors who'd fought for him, and strangers from the internet. Because Sarah had posted Caleb's song online, on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, everywhere she could think of. Within 3 days, it had 2 million views. Within a week, 10 million. People across the world were listening to an 11-year-old voicing about mattering, about being here, about leaving a mark at the service. Marcus performed it live, just him and the guitar, singing Caleb's words with Caleb's spirit. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. Afterward, David approached him. Thank you for giving me time with him at the end, for teaching me what showing up means. What will you do now? Marcus asked. I don't know, but I'm taking time off work, real time. I'm going to volunteer here in the pediatric wing. Maybe I can be present for kids whose fathers can't be. Marcus nodded. That's good. That's real good. 3 weeks later, Dr. Elaine Chen called Marcus into her office. The hospital board wants to create a music therapy program, she said, funded by donations from people who heard Caleb's story. They want you to run it. Marcus stared at her. I'm a janitor. You're a musician, a teacher, and you just proved that sometimes the most powerful medicine isn't something we prescribe. It's something we feel. I don't have credentials. We'll get you certified, pay for your training, give you a real salary, benefits, an office. You'll work with terminal patients, help them find their voices before they lose them. Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in 40 years. Purpose, when do I start? Monday. If you're willing, I'm willing. Elaine smiled. Good, because there's a girl in room 623. She's 8 years old, leukemia, weeks left. And she wants to learn how to play the piano. Marcus's first day as music therapy coordinator was strange. He wore different clothes, business casual instead of a janitor's uniform. He had an office with his name on the door. People called him Mr. Williams instead of ignoring him entirely. But when he walked into room 623, when he saw that 8-year-old girl sitting up in bed with hope in her eyes, he felt exactly like himself. "Hi," the girl said. "Are you the music man?" "I am. What's your name?" "Lily." Marcus sat down beside her bed. "Nice to meet you. Lily, I hear you want to learn piano. Is it hard?" "Some parts, but the best parts." "The parts that matter? Those are easy. You just have to be brave. Enough to try. I'm brave." She said it like a fact. I can see that. Marcus pulled out a small keyboard he'd brought. First lesson. "Let's find your note, the one that belongs only to you." Over the next 2 months, Marcus worked with 12 children, all of them terminal. All of them wanting the same thing Caleb had wanted. To be heard, to matter, to leave something behind. He recorded songs with a 6-year-old who wanted to sing for his baby sister. Taught guitar to a teenager who wanted to write a song for his girlfriend. Helped a 9-year-old compose a lullaby for the mother who'd never sleep again after he was gone. Every child's song got posted online. Every child's voice got preserved. The channel, called Final Notes, became something sacred. A place where the dying taught the living how to truly live. Within 6 months, it had 5 million subscribers. Not because people wanted to watch children die, but because these kids were the bravest humans on earth. And their songs were proof that even in the darkest moments, beauty could still be made. 1 year after Caleb's death, the hospital held a dedication ceremony. They'd renovated a large space on the pediatric floor, soundproofed it, filled it with instruments, recording equipment, comfortable chairs. Above the door, a sign, Caleb's Corner, where every voice matters. Sarah Morrison cut the ribbon, her hands shaking but her face proud. David stood beside her. He'd kept his promise, reduced his work hours by half, spent every Tuesday and Thursday volunteering with terminal kids. Just being present, Dr. Elaine Chen gave a speech. She talked about how Caleb had changed the culture of the hospital, made them remember that patients were people, not just problems to solve. She'd changed too, started leaving by 6 p.m. most days, had dinner with her sister every week, reconnected with her parents, even started dating a teacher she'd met at a coffee shop. "We spend so much time extending life," Elaine said to the crowd. "We forget to help people live it." Caleb reminded us why we became doctors in the first place, not to delay death, but to honor life, all of it, especially the parts we can't fix. When she finished, Marcus was invited to speak. He stood at the podium, looking at the crowd of doctors, nurses, families, and donors. "I'm not good with speeches," he started. "I'm better with songs, so I'll make this short. A year ago, I was invisible. I'd been invisible for 40 years. I thought that was safety, thought that was wisdom. Turns out it was just fear wearing a disguise. Then I met a kid who was dying, and he wasn't scared of being seen. He was scared of leaving without being heard. He taught me that hiding isn't the same as healing, that running from pain just means you miss the joy that lives beside it. So this place, Caleb's Corner, it's not about death, it's about life, the messy, beautiful, too short life that every one of us has been given. And if we're lucky, if we're very lucky, we get to spend some of that life helping others find their voice. Thank you, Caleb Morrison, for finding mine again. The applause was thunderous, but Marcus barely heard it because in his mind, he was back in room 847, watching an 11-year-old boy sing with everything he had, making beauty out of borrowed time. That night, Marcus went home to the apartment he'd shared with Martha. He'd started cleaning out her things finally, not erasing her, just making space for new memories alongside the old ones. He opened his laptop, checked the Final Notes channel. Caleb's song had 47 million views now. The comments section was thousands of messages. Long, this song saved my life. When I wanted to end, my daughter was terminal. We played this at her service. Thank you for showing us how to say goodbye. I'm a cancer survivor. This reminds me why I fought so hard, why every moment matters. I'm 16 and I was suicidal, but this kid dying still wanted to sing. I figured if he could be that brave, maybe I could too. Marcus read through them, every single one. Then he opened a new message, started typing. Dear Caleb, you've been gone a year now. Your song has been heard by millions. Your voice has reached people in 47 countries. You've inspired 3 kids to beat cancer just to prove You've prevented countless suicides. You've reminded the world that mattering isn't about how long you live. It's about how deeply you choose to be present while you're here. I want you to know that I think about you every day. Every time I teach a new kid, I hear your voice. Every time someone tells me they're scared to try, I remember your courage. You were here, Caleb. You were real. You sang your song, and we'll never forget. Thank you for teaching this old man how to live again. Love, Marcus. He saved the letter in a folder labeled Notes for Heaven, where he kept all the letters he wrote to people who were gone. Then he picked up Martha's guitar, and he played until sunrise. Not sad songs, not grief, songs about second chances, about finding beauty in broken things, about voices that echo long after the singer has gone. Silent, because that's what Caleb had taught him. Death is inevitable, but silence is a choice. And as long as Marcus had breath in his lungs, as long as there were children who needed to be heard, he would keep showing up, keep teaching, keep honoring the invisible people by making sure they never disappeared. 5 years later, Marcus Williams, now 72, stood in Caleb's corner. It was 10 p.m. on a Tuesday. A 13-year-old girl named Maya sat across from him. Brain tumor, 3 weeks left. I don't think I can do this, Maya said, her hands shaking on the keyboard. Marcus smiled. I know someone who felt exactly the same way. Kid named Caleb. He was 11 years old and dying, and he was terrified his voice didn't matter. What happened to him? And he sang anyway. And his voice changed the world. Maya looked at the piano keys. Did it save him? Unknown, he still died, but he didn't die silent, and that made all the difference. Maya took a shaking breath. Will you teach me? That's why I'm here. Marcus placed his weathered hands over her small ones, and together they found her first note, the beginning of another song, another voice refusing to go quiet, another child learning what Marcus had learned 5 years ago in a hospital room with a dying boy and a guitar. That sometimes the most powerful thing you can do in this life is witness someone else's existence, tell them they matter, help them be heard, and trust that their voice, once freed, will echo far beyond the ending.